Welcome to Trot Talk, an equestrian conversation with the American Saddlebred Horse Association. I'm your host, Tuffy Owens, and for our podcast, we're exploring the equestrians behind the horses, influencers in the industry, sharing their stories and giving a leg up to our community. There's nothing like the American Saddlebred. After chatting with our guests, we discovered some awesome stories of how they entered the saddlebred world. Take a listen to Marty Chappell, Victoria Walz, Jody Swimmer, and Smith Lilly as they share the beginnings of their equestrian careers. Welcome back to Trot Talk with Tuffy. We're here with Marty Chappell. We've been kind of discussing a little bit about, your background. Now let's talk about how you ended up in the saddlebred world. What happened, man?
Well, when Zoe was 5, we were on a vacation out in California or Colorado somewhere, and we passed a little place that had a sign that said horseback riding.
Uh-oh.
And I said, what the heck, let's pull over and put Zoe on a horse. And so we did. He pulled over and said, hey, we got a 5-year-old girl here. We're curious to see whether we can give her a little horseback ride.
Maybe she'll like it.
They had this monster horse by the name of Mouse.
Mouse, of course.
And put Zoe up on this horse, and that was it.
Yeah, right.
It was transformational. And there's nothing else that she got involved in after that she liked as much. She was involved in gymnastics and tennis and different things, but piano lessons. Nothing that she was involved in captivated her the way horses did.
The equipment in those is a lot less expensive.
Yes. There's no question about it. Tennis racket is a lot cheaper than a horse.
Yes.
And
they eat less, too.
But so we came back, and several months went by, and I was talking to a cousin of mine who lived on the other side of Tampa, and talking about horseback riding or Zoe liking horses. And my cousin said, "There's this barn not far from where we live. It's like right behind our house, and it says horseback riding lessons."
There you go.
And I said, maybe Zoe and I will come up and visit you, and we'll walk over and check this out. It turned out it was Ruth Gimple Stables, and they had saddlebreds.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know anything about horses. I didn't know what a quarter horse was, or a thoroughbred horse was, or a standard bred, or a saddlebred, or anything else. I grew up in the city, and I didn't even know which end of the horse was what. So we put Zoe on a horse, and I remember Ruth saying, at her age, the lessons are 20 minutes.
Okay.
And I said, let's see how she does in 20 minutes. If she wants off in 5, take her off in 5.
Yeah.
She wants to stay on, let's keep going. Well, it was 20 minutes of heaven for Zoe.
Of course.
And Ruth said, lessons up. And I said, well, let's have another lesson.
Yeah, let's go.
2 hours later.
Oh, boy.
Ruth said, I can't go anymore. Zoe didn't want to stop.
Yeah, she was like, all right, let's keep going. Oh, my gosh. She still hasn't.
Zoe had these marathon lessons because I said, if she enjoys being on the horse and the horse enjoys Zoe being on her, let's keep going.
Yeah. Well, the horse probably didn't even know she was on there at 5. I mean, Zoe's,
So that was how it started.
That's crazy.
And that was our introduction into saddlebreds.
Yeah. We generally like to kind of talk about origin stories here. Every superhero has an origin story. Tell us a little bit about you growing up, how you got involved in horses and how that all came to be.
Well, I kind of always grew up around horses. My dad, when he was a kid growing up, he got a pony that was given to him by his dad. So he thought he'd do the same things with my brothers, who are 10 and 13 years older than me. So
oh, my goodness. Okay.
When they had ponies, I was just a couple months old. I was a baby. But so my dad had horses with them, and he just thought it taught good responsibility. It was just something to do outside and as a family.
Yeah.
And he told me that he couldn't get me off the horses until I would fall asleep. Like, as a baby, I would just be sitting on the horses. So I think it's just kind of in my blood.
Well, you must have been pretty sticky then. You're falling asleep.
I think they held me up a little bit.
All right.
But, so by the time my brothers had grown out of it, I was old enough to say, like, no, I want horses.
Mm-hmm.
And we moved to Rancho Santa Fe from the place we were before in Rancho San Diego, where the horses were really close to us.
Okay.
And when we moved over there and I wanted horses, I just started taking lessons at like a local ride. I started off at a place called Horsemanship Academy, where I learned just basic horsemanship skills. Like we did emergency.
That's huge, though.
Oh, we did emergency dismounts.
That's
we used to.
awesome.
I was like 5 or 6 years old, and we'd canter around the arena, and they'd be like, "Okay, jump off now."
What?
So I think that kind of helped with me not being afraid of the horses.
Yeah.
Then from there, I moved to the local Rancho Santa Fe Riding Club, where I started off dressage, and I wanted to go back to Western. And there, I met up with Nicole Johnson, who later on introduced me to Saddle Seat in Morgan.
Jody Swimmer. Jody, thank you so much for joining us on Trot Talk.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, David.
Well, we've really had a great start to the season on Trot Talk, and with you, we want to get more of a sport horse angle, but that's not where you started with the American Saddlebred. Tell us a little bit about growing up and your parents and their involvement with the Saddlebreds.
Yes, well, I've always had saddlebreds. Mother and dad raised them, and I was fortunate enough to campaign the horses that they raised when I lived in Kentucky, which was a long time. But even before that, we had saddlebreds on the farm here in Weddington, North Carolina. And we were just showing backyard horses with we did our own thing basically. And we took them on Saturdays to the horse shows with Dad pulling us behind the Buick.
Did your parents grow up with horses?
So Mother did not. No, they did not. Mother snuck away with her allowance money and rode with her little friend down the road, I think with any horse that she could find, and didn't tell her parents. And then in college, she took riding lessons and didn't tell her parents. And then the deal is when we lived inside the Charlotte city limits, of course, this was in the 50s, Mr. Walker basically owned all the property, but a mile away, he still kept a farm. And so when I was born, Mom would stroll me to the barn, and she would take riding lessons with Mr. Walker. And Mr. Walker finally said, "You have to buy a horse." And so, that's how we started with saddlebreds. Mr. Walker had saddlebreds.
Let's get started and kind of talk about your backstory a little bit. Give me a little bit of a history lesson on your family, their history with horses, and kind of how you fell in love with the American Saddlebred.
Sure. Well, it came to me from my grandfather, but even before that, his father and their whole family had saddlebreds that they used as part of their daily lives, their daily routine. My great-grandfather was a doctor, a medical doctor, and he practiced medicine on horseback in the mountains of Southwest Virginia.
Oh, my goodness.
He had a horse that he drove around town, and then when he'd have to go in the back country, he packed his medical saddlebags, which we still have in our office, and he rode his saddlebred on his house calls. So my grandfather, of course, inherited his love. He always had a 5-gated horse that he kept. Sure. Even if he didn't show the horse, he would have it on the farm to ride, and just because he enjoyed it. So I learned horsemanship from people who knew it just innately, as you have to know horses if you depend on them for part of your daily existence.
Yeah, that's part of your life.
Before the day of cars, people had to be horsemen if they wanted to get anything done.
Thank you all for listening to Trot Talk. We hope you enjoyed the ride. The ASHA is committed to promoting and protecting the American Saddlebred horse for a brighter future full of ASB dreams. I'm Tuffy Owens. Keep listening and trot on.